You this afternoon to a public talk by His Holiness Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok. His Holiness was born in 1933 in northeastern Tibet. About 10 years ago, he began actively teaching in Tibet after several decades of decline in the Buddhist teachings there. He is responsible for greatly increasing the spread of Buddhism in that part of Tibet, and has brought many tens of thousands of Tibetans and even a few Chinese into the Buddha Dharma during that time. We are extremely fortunate to have him. It was through what was virtually a series of miraculous logistical sequences that had happened, many of which should never have occurred. Telephone connections that are still not understood. He managed to get his visa and his permission to leave China, and we are extremely fortunate to have him with us here in Nova Scotia. His edition of his trip to Nova Scotia was very much last minute, so we were a little bit scurrying about, but we are very, very pleased to have him and honored, and I would like to request His Holiness to teach us this afternoon. Thank you.
Terang tang lu ban zor kyong jin so la bat mi dong bo la gyar ver nam zhang zhong len yi zhe san zo hui jia yong dan zong ba wa ba mam zhong ni dang lu bam zor ro chu za long de chur ki gong ba ni ho sa yang sa long ki yang na zi de ji nang ro zhe kin ro dong za kim jin chu ji ya ro la shan za ra na bi san ki je ra yang la ga ra gun do zang mo la na ba Chiki Yarwin Relin Zamza Ban Jam Lami Yavla Shanzarlo, Johnny Kulin Chawabo, Shidromi Raptor Gen Jutam Ser Jambayala Shanzarlo, Concept Dr. Jan Bansem Gisar, Yawi Pan Marajona, Jotani, Lakshadrsi, Jaya Togina, Japardaki, La Karsor. That Tedakna Rang Kala Mubi Deni Ta Labalala Chopper Joba Honda Sony.
Before beginning the teachings, I have just paid homage to my own heart deity.
Deni Kang Langer have Tamir Jena Kang Langer have Tamno.
Now the subject today.
Tani tak zubu na tan nangwa sangibi chuluk dam temba tak tamshem dordi samshgiba yin.
Well, I'd like to speak a little bit today about the tradition of Buddhism and the types of practices that are employed in daily life which are in accordance with the Buddhist tradition. Is the mic?
Aya tinana 다 다리가 잠깐 하장 가르성을 기르어지긴 버리 시구바리.
We should all recognize that we all are experiencing a state of great fortune.
대양 가르치 तर장장나 다 기르가 소리는 장랑 더 기르리.
The reason for this is, first of all, that we are born in this world of ours called Zambuling.
드니 장랑 대양나 다 흔드 분심 소바 임바 김선 대양나 회나 다 헬림 박보다 너 와랑 쇼다 피앙 드라마년 지발라 소바 미여 야야 모우고 기르다나 대 장마라 다 롱쇼다 데르kit나 캬버 분심 소바 요짱 다 담비 추드비 카라메 피피나나 다 대덕이 캬버던 바바 임바 시 구바리.
And the reason that this world of ours, which is actually the southern continent called Zambuling, the reason that this world of ours called Zambuling, which is the southern continent, is so fully endowed is because if we examine the way that life is carried out in the other continents, to the east, to the west, and to the north, although there is human life on those continents, and there are endowments and there are pleasurable experiences, it is impossible for any of those human beings to meet with the Buddha Dharma or practice the Buddha Dharma. It simply does not exist there.
드니 단자와 랑더 드니 밀리름 보시 토바테야나 하장 니버까바다 니버테야나 카라좀 척도 기라지긴 바 시구바리.
So then in this world of ours, the southern continent, again called Zambuling, it is also very difficult to actually obtain a precious human rebirth, to be reborn as a human being in a situation with all of the endowments and states of freedom. And so if that situation has been obtained, it is considered to be extremely precious and extremely excellent.
대양나 좀 녀바다 예탁다 던로 다 하마인 라스비니스 키버케나나 다 딩나량 조트 메바다나 마사파 장가나 다 담비 출라 쇼 콤비 롱커비야 메비페나 하장 흔데 타차바지 되는데.
Because if one were actually reborn in the hell realm, the hungry spirit realm, the animal realm, the titan realm, or the deva realm, the suffering that must be endured there is absolutely unbearable. So much so that there is absolutely no opportunity to practice the Dharma.
디나는 다 하이 예리피아와 흔드 몸살바당 데르킷 판슨 속바즈다 요드레타나 다 데레트 키나야나 데니존테 데스탁다 버메탄 바지카야나 다 추디비 카레메 비피나 티야나 메니 토반딘 슈크자야 데니와 마리.
And even if one is reborn in a God's realm, in the realms of gods, although these are marvelous places, fully endowed with pleasures and everything is very wondrous, still, because one is so consumed with the pleasure of the experience, then one never has any opportunity to practice Dharma, because one is not inclined to do so. And so the spiritual path remains unpracticed.
이 마사파 장가는 다 상지가 송 왜나 소소 tarvada fianchip sevada 생각지 주제를 남박심 섀도들이 따띠 상마습도는 밀린디리 텐디 당가는 드브나야는 드반 드비카라 요바리 데 나라 소반로 jan라는 딜리 텐디 당가는 람차상스 드브트기마리 드비카라 요키마리 티셔나야 밀리더니 버카리.
In that, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni presented the three categories of teachings in this world, the teachings on the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the mantra in those three categories, or vehicles. Anyone who has a precious human rebirth, who is able to connect with these teachings, has the opportunity to accomplish them in their entirety, if they so desire. But if someone is reborn as a god, in the gods' realms, for instance, they would not have the opportunity to practice any of these teachings. It's not something that would occur for them. And so therefore, more than rebirth as a god, a human rebirth is absolutely sublime, and it's something very difficult to obtain.
Dinner stone baptism dendi. That Jim John that Chiba Tam Chetkana, Harry Lakby Lizer Kiron, that chet of Napjut that's a day a million bochiri. That around in Alan, the Toyo Patilla, Gapro, Capitan Kid Gubari.
And so it is always considered by those who follow the Buddha, the followers of the Buddha's teachings, that the human rebirth is something that is more sublime than even birth as a god. And in context of that, the precious human rebirth, with its freedoms and endowments, is the most difficult rebirth to obtain. And once it is obtained, then we should always feel a sense of true joy and gratitude.
Denny? That's Sanjin just in them joint and Hinder Nipper Kavajik the Yeneri.
In addition to that, it is very, very rare to be born at a time when the Buddha has come into this world.
Then that just in Sanjin just in the Shombi, Tizotela Kara of Zao Jifyavari. Sanjin just in the Martian be Tizotela Minbi Kara Jifyavari.
A period of time, which is a time that the Buddha has come into the world, is called a fortunate aeon. And that fortunate aeon is termed such because it refers to a time that the Buddha was present in the world, that his presence is known. Whereas a time when his presence is unknown in the world is called a dark aeon.
Dinana, that Menbi Karazakitan, young the drum was them joined. Then you drone me Karam, that Sanjin just in the Shombi Karabs on the that ringa Zams Martom, Mumjonji, Hajan Kumos the.
As for these two aeons of time, the dark aeons are very abundant. There are multitudes of them in terms of time. But the light aeons, the time when the Buddha comes and the lamp of the Buddha's presence is in this world, these are only sort of interspersed in between an abundance of dark periods of time. And so therefore, it is also considered to be rare.
This Sanjin just in the Shomba, the test of Nipper Kavaj can be Jimson Teana. Then Joar Namna, then is on the Tampa Chunyamsil and be Karabs on Trinkins or be Tizote, Hajan Kun was in the Sanjim of Yonari.
And this is why it is considered by Buddhists that to be born in a time when the Buddha has come into the world is also very rare and very precious, let alone having the opportunity to connect with his teachings and actually put them into practice.
Then that Sanjin just in the Shumber Kirgana, that Sanji the Chukson, Chuksoni Masadna, that Chuti, now at the Man per Dariopatiana, Hajanga the Nipper Kavadan, Karazon Yanari.
So then, assuming we have the great fortune of the Buddha's presence in the world, if the Buddha came and didn't teach the Dharma, then again it might not be as fortunate, but in fact, of course, he did teach the Dharma. Not only that, if the Dharma had already vanished from this world, that would be a certain situation, which it is not. The Dharma is still present in this world.
That thing is Kavalap Samutana, that Sanjin just in the Shumba Matsat, that Sanji Chujin Korloyan. Rebak some last of that Mao coroner, then is on the Tampadeana, that Nibjin began by the Hajan Gafrufia was a Kervajiri.
Not only did the Buddha teach the Dharma, but he turned the wheel of the Dharma teachings on 3 great occasions. And all of those teachings are still very much present in this world. They remain stable in this world. And so because of the presence of the Buddha's doctrine, and as something that we can connect with, we should understand how rare it is, and we should feel a sense of true joy and gratitude.
God, Dangi Chindaze, Tango, Zinana, Sanjin Jistin, the Shun, the Chustamani Odrit, Sanjika Karte Chusong, Tamba Nisas and Jana, that the Ton de Manor Tonbi, that Lama give him them Ted go on the remark to Mana, that Lamada Mamtredna, around the Sanjika Son Samanyams and be Tep Shiba Mari.
However, once again, in that the teachings are present, if we don't meet with a qualified spiritual mentor, a lama, a spiritual teacher who can explain these teachings to us, then we wouldn't understand how to really connect with them and how to practice. So we also must have the auspicious coincidence of meeting with a true spiritual guide. For if we don't, again, we don't have the same state of good fortune.
Then Lamar gave him dam chadana. Lamian, Sanji, Sonjenda, Yapsin of Tombatin, David chicken the combagri.
And it is also even more rare to, let's say, meet with a Lama, receive the teachings of the Buddha from the Lama, but then to actually be inspired to practice those teachings.
Dinana, Tata, Murchaka, Rangri, Sangmala, Tirtavim, Tinkindana, then he Tani, Kiverkava, Hon Zamala de Arki, Shumberka, Sanji Anjitin de Chun, Tirsomarkava, Tambi Chuyan Song, Tambi Chuson and Maza, Tambi, Tambay Taramana Ni, Tirton be Lamadam Chata, Lamadam Chapa Mazet, Lami Chuton be Caravzon Dena, Ta Adam Waranjitin de Shun, Kava Ligan and the Takavas again, but she in a dark Gafro Gomgoni.
Therefore, all of us should think about it. When I mention how rare and precious our opportunity is, which is fully endowed, it refers to what I just mentioned, that we are born in this southern continent, Zambuling, the best of all places to be born, in a precious human rebirth, that we are born at a time that the Buddha has come into the world. We are born at a time that the Buddha not only came into the world, but gave the Dharma teachings. We're born at a time that the Dharma teachings have not vanished from the world. They're still with us. And we're also able to meet with kind and compassionate spiritual mentors who introduce us to the teachings, who are willing to teach us. And so therefore, our situation right now is like the blooming of a udamwara flower, which is something that blooms just once in an aeon, which is exceedingly rare to see, and that is likened to our present state of rebirth. So therefore we should experience, or we should sort of give rise to, a strong sense of joy and gratitude. With this type of fully endowed situation, where everything is so conducive, first and foremost then, we must go ahead and try to develop very deep faith. If we were to look at faith in terms of distinctions or levels of faith, usually it is considered that faith is developed in three ways, on three levels. First of all, a faith which is like an attraction, a faith that is based on being attracted. The second level of faith becomes a faith which wishes to emulate. And finally, the third level of faith is what is called the fully convinced experience of faith, which is irreversible.
Dirtavi tapateana, ta sanji komshugla amagana tawi tapada, chur komshugla amagana dopi tapada, genut komshugla amagni ichi bitapada baksam kit gubari.
And these three types of faith are actually applied to the three jewels of refuge in the following way. The faith, which is faith based on strong attraction, is a way that we would feel towards the Buddha, the first jewel of refuge. And a faith of wishing to emulate or become like is how we should feel towards the Dharma, the second jewel of refuge. And the fully convinced faith is how we should feel towards the Sangha, the third jewel of refuge. Looking back at the first, this faith that is based on attraction, which is considered to be pure faith, because it just simply spontaneously occurs. It occurs when you think about the Buddha. It would be a feeling of when you think about the Buddha that you feel tremendous joy and happiness and attraction.
다 마오식 또 쇼미온데 때 간다야 만자비 좀든 디테일하나 다 요는 맞도 쇼아긴 비 김살라 때는 좀든 디테일하 갑게 구바리.
Now, the reason that this type of pure faith, which is a faith of being attracted to an object of refuge, would arise, is because the Buddha is really unlike any other great teacher who has come into this world. His qualities are unequaled, in that many great teachers, many great gods, are in this world as objects of refuge, such as Indra and Brahman and so forth. Their qualities cannot be compared to the noble qualities of the Enlightened One, Lord Buddha.
Tenina tat jomden dite tetakda manjabi yonden jerta yigo tenana furna salani bi shanchu senwa chembo yiknam jodna jomden dige yonden kyawa de lum bumchak mau barda jodna jomden dige yonden chatsawa sani bi tabge mari.
If one were to try to express the noble qualities of Lord Buddha, and when I say they're unequaled, I mean, for instance, if you were to try to compare the qualities of a bodhisattva who is on a high level, one of the higher bodhisattva bhumis or stages of development, even if you were to praise those qualities for hundreds and thousands of years, it wouldn't even come close to being able to express even a portion of the Buddha's qualities, which are so far surpassed.
Dinana tat jomden ditila yonden sadmepa pshir yodneretan te yopat sama ma hijana ta rangri namla niverum kowa ngirchaka metmon jomden diga yonden de shi gubari.
So bearing in mind how the Buddha's noble qualities are actually something that we cannot measure, we cannot imagine, we must come to have some kind of an understanding of what they are. It's something that we also must become aware of.
Tatani rangri namla niverum ko yonden de kainna tang ngirchaka sangba ni kabna hadang mi de apansum soba deber fie bi tapshiniz tartik dana de yonden tadak soba sanji komalan gutbi 다음 천리지 가나 요나네 때라 다 수좀는데 요는 탐지금 쇼디 저랑을 참 고주고 듣더리 들다 요는 지다 대 요바디 싫고리.
At least we must have some knowledge of the noble qualities so that in our minds we are able to reach a state or a commitment whereby we have every intention to not just achieve a temporary state of happiness by taking rebirth as a god or a human, but to be able to achieve an absolute state of permanent happiness by achieving enlightenment or liberation or the state or status of Buddhahood with all of the miraculous abilities that are a part of that experience. And so this is something that we must aspire towards, and so we must know at least something about the noble qualities so that we can have that type of aspiration or strong commitment.
Teana ta tertara gupi kimsan teana when na chumdan dilam yondan mamoji got zanga around in namla pamba midna ta tela jan gajon trosa jigod mari when na jiting kamdar ter gerwo wanchiwa chikhun the mamozu gakya ta rani na pamba midna tela gafto ji geduri gerwo kanji rani namla na ta pamba yopi gerwo telan takbar gag gubartabari tinap chumdan de yondan teana rani namla pambi chatena ni perdi shi gubari.
Now the reason for this is because if we know about the qualities of the Buddha, then if we feel that they're not something that will be of benefit to us, then there's no reason to feel a sense of attraction or joy towards wanting to achieve that state. On the other hand, like for example, if we wanted to become a king or a ruler, if this was a status that we were attracted to achieving ourselves, yet if it was something that could bring us no benefit, then there would be no reason for achieving that state. And so we have to think about what the benefits are if we are able to achieve that same state or that same status. And it needs to be something that can be of benefit, of true benefit to self and others. And in order to know that, we have to know what the qualities are, but at the same time, we must be able to look ahead and see what the benefits are of those qualities.
Then Jumdandi, Taranilla, never Kovi, Yondan the Kanjinana, Tan can be on that, saving on that, nippy on that, Kensin on that, some your body.
Now, of all of the many qualities of the Buddha, they can be condensed into the three categories of omniscience, altruism or loving kindness, and power or potency.
Diana, that Jumdandiga, Taipi Simjan Tamchet, Deva and Gopi Tapta, or Dinger Livtron Tapte, Mashina. That is on the Jumdandik Simjan La Pump of Dipta Jumartan, Jumdandini, Shifia Tamchet Mali Per, came be done chance at the Henry.
In terms of omniscience, which is also wisdom knowledge, the mind of the Buddha is a mind which understands how to place all sentient beings, as limitless as space itself, in the status of permanent peace and happiness, and knows precisely how to employ the methods to see to the liberation of all beings from their different types of suffering. And so this is the type of benefit that is derived from achieving that same state of awareness. And this is in context of the wisdom quality, or this quality of omniscience, of absolutely knowing how to set sentient beings free from suffering and place them in permanent happiness.
Dinana, that Jumdan Dilam can be on the Sadme Pai Yota Zengana. That's Sibi on the Yunjogarim, Sibi on the Mina, Adershana Pantobi Tawad Mari. Quirnana, that musica, arranging Shun Samji Machabachanzina. Tarjan lap Samba no Hojan, Jora Submojan, Tilsamsina, Tirjan la Pampa 7, he drifted Kamari, Tikshan of Sivion than the Yod Gubari.
But in addition to that, the Buddha also has so many noble qualities which are the result of the development of perfect altruism mentioned in the three. And so this quality of loving kindness or compassion is absolutely essential as well. You can't just have omniscience or wisdom without compassion. Otherwise, still there will be no true benefit, and the methods employed cannot be of true benefit. For instance, even an ordinary person, even though they may be very learned, if they have a rough character, then they really can't be of very much benefit to others, because they're always putting others off, and so people would not be interested to listen to them, even though they may know a lot. If their character is rough and offensive, they're of no benefit. And so loving kindness and compassion must also be present.
Dina Jumdan de Sebatin, Chirtawa Yigotina, when a workshiply may be mad. We left Sibeli, younger, Tonjer the Labina, and there's another Sebati Jumdan de la ordinary.
So if we were to think about the kind of loving kindness and compassion that the Buddha possesses, or the mind of the Buddha experiences, then we use the example of the love that a mother has for her only child and multiply that by hundreds and thousands of times. And this is the type of love that the Buddha has for all living beings.
That Jumdan Digana, one Noba Lamir near Captain, Jumdan the Wumber Zobar Sargi Vitikap, that Tamchet Diana, then is on the Rangle leader, Trula Amartavar, same Jangaton the River Fiedneri.
How is it that the Buddha was able to develop this level of loving kindness and compassion? It occurred at the time that he himself was training on the path to become enlightened. As a practitioner, during that time, he always trained in the practice of being of benefit to others and cherishing others more than himself. And at the time of his enlightenment, because this was always his practice and aspiration, he was enlightened in the state of awareness of totally loving and cherishing others more than oneself.
일과라나서 장정롱와 르덕이낙서는 다 좀된디가 셈전라 판바당 대암종 회드는 공고 워대야나 담 멈쩍 마오는 대빈밥당와 인지 좀된디랑 이지 yar기바리
Outkinana Outkinana Bumtrakare Gemma Outkinangla
아
listen. To give you an example of how it is that the Buddha dedicated his life to others and would give up his body time and time again in his pursuit to develop this level of compassion, even after he was enlightened, when he then went to Varanasi, to the famous deer park, where he gave his first Dharma discourse, which is known as the first turning of the Dharma wheel. At that time, in order to express his compassion for the benefit of others as well, there were Boomtrak Mompo Driksang. He actually took off his own head, removed his head in front of many hundreds of thousands.
좀된디가 다 셈전가 돈도 그쪽 돈지대 와라나서 이렇게야리지네 대양마리 대양한다서 그나 자왕랑가 사차 잔당 잔 자왕랑리 잔비나 다 이렇게 근도는 좀된디가 대 그쪽 대 셈전가 돈란 망우 왔다나 대타 임박당 오파리.
And there are many, many occasions, not only just in Varanasi, but in many other places in the world, where the Buddha gave his body, gave parts of his body, gave the blood from his body for the benefit of other beings, just simply exchanging himself for the sake of benefiting others.
Then, that Jumden you say that that Fiorijan, when Teni Ranga, that Nisa, Sarsa. Tenim tansa, jomdan diler gavadan kibet tamchada fseniz. Jenla mfsene tir tavijinan ta fiori chandetana. Jomdan digsevatian tir tavi fiosama chat bazgri.
However, it was never a case where the Buddha would express loving kindness towards those who he was close to, such as his relatives or those disciples of his who were already attracted to him, and not show loving kindness to others. On no occasion was this type of biased conduct ever displayed by the Buddha.
Deang chirtarin jena tap jomdan de musib jibiti sana ayif shogni liqamur jabshingi zandan korshiki skelila ta pinat kirgoni chipshavada. Koyom shogni nif sambang anpigoni udal livjingam songinan balaan jomdan dilan ter nigalaan ta tuksevala keber mepat ta nigayaan te panba devalan gobr kipitang chansgeneri.
Juchok nisana? Yechok.
Good reason.
Right hand. Is offering
to the gods.
By the gods. Usually do Karamochi, nothing, is harmony.
Yenchok.
From his left side is the do Karamochi, this demon. He's trying to harm me. Buddha. So this harmony and the offering is both them from him as an equal loving way, compassion. One is offering him, one is harming him. But for Buddha himself, these two of them equally loving compassion. They don't have
what is he offering him? The Buddha's offering his right hand.
The offering Buddha is offering water for drinking against tree
For example, there was one occasion where there were two gods who were confronting the Buddha, and one was making offerings to the Buddha and expressing offerings and devotion, and the other god was a demonic king who was trying to harm the Buddha. And on that occasion, he dealt with both of them equally and displayed loving kindness and compassion towards both of them impartially.
다 링 도와다 롱시 체위 간서 남래 세와 요니 딱 멤버 탐jel레 세메드즈기나 티스베테야는 픽스는 와지겠다 대자 마인 버 존된 디그 세베테나 담 토발리가 멤버 냠탁 비심젠남라 다 락바 틱세비당이 찬지긴네리.
And also, it was never a case where the Buddha's loving kindness and compassion was greater for those who were in higher positions or had more endowments, and was less for those who were weak or poor or meager. Never was there an occasion where the Buddha showed this type of partial experience of loving kindness. In fact, it was just the opposite, that more often than not, he was always more kind and showed more compassion and love and concern for those who were in need.
Then Jordan digu sebeteana ta tangdigi chapter kan tabi then is on the sebeteana get was the seven yenmari
Chapter
Shops in case of orders.
Dice wala yukimare.
His loving compassion is not like in a race, like those
Politicians. So Lord Buddha's loving kindness and compassion was never limited like those who are partial towards their own people and or their own race, such as those politicians.
That's a chapter can they get the chimozina that chapter dribni metina that new garton on and the tela siva yot timur gasori on chimboji to Kedneri. Then is on the Yam Tapa, Mary, and Yiris and Gitondana, that is the gasoli on Machine Pamba on Machine Pajit Yidneri.
See that these days the leaders for hundreds and 4,000 people, they express their gratitude and happiness, but when they really see as an individual suffering things, then they don't really take care, they don't care.
Because those leaders, those political leaders, usually express their gratitude and their kindness and their appreciation in front of thousands of people when there's some benefit to them. But if they really see a few people who are suffering, they usually don't pay any attention to that.
Congress could try on landmark on Guna Dela and Pass met. Then is on the loot on Shirman where the Simja Chicken to Berguna, Jumdan de la Kuame Patirtavi, they saving Yaji, partition was great.
Because the loving kindness and compassion of the Buddha, even if just one sentient being was in need, many times over he could give up his life and his blood again and again for just one single being without ever having any regret. And at the same time, for thousands of years, if the need be, unceasingly, the Buddha would continue to express loving kindness and compassion for those beings who are in need. And his expression of loving kindness and compassion is absolutely unrivaled.
Tani that Jumdandigana, Terter Yamba Gimsayana, that Moon Jumdandi, Gina, that Nyariyatan, Cat Pakita if you have Gineri. Titazo Kola took Kamar Bazir was gone. Kong Yigina, Nyarvi, Da Lincoln Namgana, Kantan Rimberke, Kantab Tagan Gubari. Division and Kong Yiba Nigalan, Lincoln, Hajang Don, yet Tirta Happy Nirkam Natap Jumdan di Sambala, Tang Haller Dinger Shon. That won't there be Tavik Day or Samana. Then he Limkan Chimbo, Douglas Onjik. Then he Jobu Karandeana, Nachi Vilana, Takanti Tabadi, Nikela, Nitrikin, Trobo, the Dervika Jozi, Jibin Irkam, Nyari Tromate, that Yerdan that the Kiram Nyari, Simjananga, Yola, Dela Gosha Sajik Zina, Gola Twag, and the Jumdan di Simbuin, some Saxon the Kevilorgi and Yodari.
The Buddha For example, one time when the Buddha was in the hell realm, and his name was Karma Rupa, and he was plowing in the field with the other beings who were in that experience of the hell phenomena, and undergoing this sort of tremendous torture of laboring there indefinitely. And those messengers of the hell realm were beating them and forcing them to labor unceasingly. And at that time, he had such a thought that if only all of the suffering of the other beings in the hell realm could ripen upon him at this very moment. And then the messenger of hell just smashed him over the head with a hammer, and he fainted. And then after he revived from that, he was reborn on the 33rd God's realm.
Tenina yang matsan tap jumdan diga kitsik chila jumdan dilan randa sada no pa soba den livsion zerwa tiri ta tela sanop tana mun ta cher ngama nam sa tir tak jumdan di tela no pa ba ji somnere kitse tela yang no pa ba ji somnere ta livsion ge chetana ta kongo kuchuk la na te manjim bar phanbab de bitsa te si yang germany bar tawar te ton zapari
Legend saying two legend two legend saying the Quran because his own life he was always trying to harm Buddha in his own life. Because in the previous so many births, and he always tried to harm Buddha.
Did he?
And so even those kind of beings, still he always holds me.
Also, there is one god who is a demonic god, Lachin, who is always trying to harm the Buddha. And even from previous lives, it was historical that there were so many occasions that he was trying to harm the Buddha and bring him some kind of harm and get him to react. But on every occasion, he never showed any adversity or any type of a reaction, and just continued to show him more and more loving kindness and compassion.
Dina jumdan dila tir tabi tam ken bada sevi yondan yot zengyang ten nibi yondan zdiot gone niba medna tam kense kyawa ga karam chen mar.
So in this way, the Buddha, possessing this unrivaled omniscience and loving kindness and compassion, it is still not complete without power or potency.
Niba medna ta qinna Mergan mo mukyam me lakhayam me pi ta gan mo zgaran ga bete chikir sona tela nyarji da samji me khabaz yot zengyana ta ta choteli dirtb mari tevin ta nibe medna semjen namla nyar ziya samji yan pan toba yod mari.
Like the example of the old woman with no hands who sees her child being carried off by rushing water and has such an experience of inconceivable compassion for the child and can do nothing about it but watch. And so like that, even though one may possess knowledge and this altruism on the level of the Buddha, without power or potency, again, the method is not complete to help sentient beings.
Dina jumda dila nipa chirtawa yozenan ta kongo ki nibada sung nibada tiki yondan nibati ta nibana bak so yokiri.
The power, the potency that the Buddha possesses is corresponds to his body, to his speech, and to his mind.
Jumdan dida kutila nipa chirtawa yozenan ta jumdan di yerin zjarva zamgina then ils ont été pas comme son corps dingerli toren ta tant de jivi kombala viore hipari.
The type of noble qualities and power that the Buddha possesses physically is that just by simply being in his presence, it has the potency to liberate sentient beings from the suffering of cyclic existence, just to meet him, just to be in his presence.
Ta jumdan di ngur kut nona tirta phangi jigona tarta ta ti yondan di ordinary zina te ordinary ta jumdan di yer musun thona tirta yondan yot zingya ta tarta rangri namana ta tirta jumdan di ki yondan da ji jidam joneri zina te am joneri.
So to actually meet with the Buddha, to directly be in his presence, then this is the case. But even now, just to think about his noble qualities, this is also the case.
대야 시스터리 온데 좀된데 라니기 자니냐 그거지 남바 마우 테프트닌 로에겔아 조리 통셰도 송 좀된데 그거지 대야 르크다 디크 단드라 맨디 그거지 남바 나스갑트는 심전 남을 돈 잡을 피했네리
Longkudang Tugu.
세르크
Form of statues in so many forms and things.
And also the Buddha has manifested in so many various ways, not just only in a human embodiment, but also in the form of statues and so forth.
대야 르크다발란 손나야 답 좀된데 랑트르 그냥 오창금 쇼트니 나온드라 tek circle asba sark khank ordor kar taviz ginada tela fiern sarvadam choban bervada tar molam de bala asba finana jumden de ngusib jibi tazona te fiern chud molam tabadan kaber meper tem durde tamshagina sonwandri.
And it is also clearly stated in the sutras that to have devotion to pay homage to make offerings to make prayers to those stupas which contain the relics of the Buddha and those statues that are molded in his likeness, whether they are made of gold or copper or even stone, also brings about the same results as though one were to meet with the Buddha directly.
Denina ta khina pishkta chiglab samoptana chumden dig kurzikte ta khindim ziba injanda ta chepa injanda ta tin jar kanza tamchalana ta pambadam dia samji meche bazum jonjiri
Jikusana Kundra.
Tanka.
Oh, listen. For example, even if someone is able to see a tanka, which is a painting which depicts the form of the Buddha, which is extremely pleasing and attractive. Just even to meet with that form of the Buddha is something that alone has the power to bring the benefit of imbuing the mind with peace and happiness.
Deana tap chumden dig kurzikte lana tatpadan kibi kon jarnana tap sonam samji meche bayopa mumagubaritan. Then you want to sim. That year down the chiefs the chumden the Kazgler Taji Chanzinadan. Team Sonam Gotokayana, Yen Ramoya, Martuba, Namjina Sanji Koma, Tober in Gerayana, Tim Durdinam, Sarah Sawadi.
Shadrangana.
Is it that if
Dihakas and Dambo, Shadrang?
even the condition to go from Shaitan still none of it is proposed that you really original items from after.
Just by meeting it anyway. So, if one actually is able to see a form of the Buddha and have strong faith and devotion towards that form, not just only acknowledging its beauty and feeling attracted to it, but having faith and devotion, then needless to say how much merit is accumulated from that. Even if one sees a form of the Buddha and becomes angry, it is still taught in the sutras. It clearly states that just by the merit of coming in contact with the form of the Buddha, after a very long time, eventually one will receive the benefits.
Yana tartin irkabin andrag chumdan dila tabasek chik sorak tavana chumdan digi jer ngusun jarna tenim zon tete tar nawa nyam nalan jarna admelam den jerwa tedak tam je kinjan mira nyitana te yonan chabar chanda kerana sarji koma tobarin gerari.
Therefore, in terms of the noble qualities and power of the Buddha's body alone, then it is taught in many of the sutras that just by meeting with, of course, clearly, if you were to actually be in the presence of the Buddha directly, it goes without saying, but just by meeting any image of the Buddha, or even having single-pointed faith and devotion, or even having a vision or having an experience in the dream state is something that will actually bring out the enlightened noble qualities within oneself.
Mala kadın yıkmak istemedi. Didn't come up. Go Piagan, sir, can you return at night?
Re. Richard.
No, the gum. Yeah. We have come out. How to make a cut done. The Nishkoko again, the Naran Koko goodness.
I didn't know that I had a mic until just now, and then I heard it, and I realized it's down there.
Then he came as a pachangana, tap jumdan the song, Tata, you took them could be. Shoot they on. Tang Musa Sorda than some give me capari, Nanso Kirgo Luko. Then he's on the then, say on Wadan, not me pada. No ship you want us back, that Tobana, they Mumarguberry.
Now, as for actually meeting with the teachings of the Buddha, of course, if we are fortunate to be able to actually read the syllables of the letters of the Buddha's teachings, the Dharma, then this is the best. It's inconceivable. It alone has the power to close the door to rebirth in the lower realms, and also just having contact with the syllables of the teaching of the Dharma can extend our life, give us the blessing of longevity and good health. And this goes without saying.
Then he check and dandy Jumdan the Sonla, Musin and be Kara Medan. Then if you hadn't read the glass of Bartavazina, Jumdan the Chuto, Sumi, Tikap, Tisotan before the Nanda, Tonda, Timo Cornija de Tuna Teona, they rumble Motaban Corridingly, Taran Gerard.
So, even when we think about if we don't have the opportunity to meet directly with the teachings, just by having some kind of a contact with the syllables, we have these benefits. Let's look at the benefits that those birds and deer have at the time of a Dharma teaching. Now, of course, they can't really meet directly with the teachings or read the syllables, but if they hear the sound of a conch being blown or a drum that is being beaten at the beginning of a teaching or at any time during the teaching, then by hearing that sound, also it is taught clearly that in a very short time they will be freed from that lower stage of rebirth and will gradually be led to liberation.
Hey, Mazapachangana, tap Jumdan the Tiki on the Chestavijanana. That Simjin Ririk and the Rivjindana. Jumdan the Sevi Tiki Chimboda, Trinity Tili Mayoga, Simjagaton Zapari. Sevi Naji Chimbu Goni, Simjagaton Zapati, Tili Mayoga.
And as for the noble qualities of the mind, the power of the Buddha's mind, then individual sentient beings actually receive on their capacity, according to their sensibility, the Buddha's teachings and his loving kindness and his wisdom knowledge in terms of its expression as miraculous activity. And so we can understand that the qualities of the Buddha's mind are expressed by his expression of miraculous activity, which is able to reach all of the living beings according to their levels of sensibility.
When that Gamsu Chimbonan are left me pity cups to 7 Tradamar. Great division the Jumdan Digana Simjan Tamshana, Tunzakitena, that Yaru Tanyus and Zobiti cups to 7 Tradamari.
For example, it is impossible for there not to be a wave that arises or wells forth from the great ocean. And so just like that, it is impossible that the miraculous activity of the Buddha will not be able to reach and accomplish the purpose of all sentient beings.
Jumdan Digana, Tafshop Chief Young Namsa. Then it's Sanji the Rishavan Namlan and Sanji yet to the same Tonzakiri. Fianch of Sami, the Rishavan Namlan, Fianch of Sami, number Tonzakiri. Then Yantu the Ran Sanji, that the Rishavan Namlan, Yantu the Ran Sanji, number and the same Tonzakiri.
So from the field of enlightened awareness, the Buddhas send forth boundless intentional manifestations in order to tame the minds of beings according to their needs and sensibilities. And so if a Buddha needs to manifest as a Buddha, then he will, she will, as a bodhisattva, as a shravaka, a hearer, as a pradika, or a solitary realizer, on whatever level is deemed necessary in order to tame the minds of beings according to their needs.
Dani chumdan digana, tam mamayin bindoba, fialan, fiarifter, redakla, redakzifter, chigni zifterana, the simjin mau, number 3, simjin giton zaparit.
Shidrak. Any? Two. And even the Buddhas manifest in other realms as spirits and entities, as birds, as wild animals, and as animals that live underwater.
The Mazapachangana, Ta Redang, Naksardang, Jonshang Lasok by Namnijana, that Dambi Chum Jongadang. Bedak Tamjak Simjan La Pandi, hold me up Verena, Simjan La Tonzakiri.
In forests, in jungles, in the wild, for the purpose of bringing the Dharma to those places, for the purpose of benefiting the sentient beings, the living beings who dwell there, the Buddhas manifest there as well, and the Dharma is spread on in those places according to the needs and sensibilities of the beings who dwell there.
That Simjan Ririkan, the Jumdan, the Tish, Takbar Genda, Nin Langsam, San Langsam, the Simjan Tela, and the Pampa to be Tafsa, they are gone. Simjan Tela, Tish, the Pampa to make it to the Mari.
Therefore, it should be clearly understood that for the benefit of each and every sentient being, in order to establish them in peace and happiness, throughout the day and night, unceasingly, 3 times in the day, 3 times in the night, which means unceasingly, the Buddha always understands the needs of sentient beings and tries to benefit them and accomplish their purpose in whatever way is deemed necessary.
Dina Dapjum Dila, Gavadan, Tamaki, Gubijams and
So this is the reason why we should feel attracted to the Buddha, and when we think of the Buddha, we should have great joy and gratitude.
Diana, that Congo Nipitil Harian, Kiardu that Milan Shikja.
And so to imbue that within you, again, I would like to say a few words.
Tumba Sanjis Egiti, that Simjan and Pamdilango be tap Mamkin Nayana, that Jumdan Dila Gazich Godman, than Jumdan Dim Henry.
That the unsurpassed teacher, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, absolutely knows the methods which bring benefit to all sentient beings. It is impossible that the Buddha would not know this.
Jumdan Dim Kinka Jajok, Jumdan Dila 7 years Chimbo Medayana, that Dershanama Lam Tonjumarita, Jumdan Dila 7 years Chimbo and Yobari.
So, realizing then that the Buddha is totally omniscient in knowing the methods to benefit beings, if he didn't have loving kindness and compassion for them, he wouldn't show them those methods. And so he must have loving kindness and compassion as well.
Then Jumdan Dilam Kin better Sivayoto Zinja, Simjan and Pamdi Dribi, Nimta the Midnight Jumdan the Simjan to Yumaritan, Jumdan Dilana, they toba maybe Niba Yokiri.
And even though he possesses omniscience and loving kindness and compassion, if he didn't have power or potency, he wouldn't be able to apply those methods in such a way that they would actually accomplish the purpose of others. And so he also has power, the full potency, to be able to actualize his full potential in terms of methods.
Tan Rentam Travaden, Jumden the Konala Yokirim, Jen Jiktin Kamgana, Kala Yokimari.
It is only the Buddha in all of this world who possesses this type of unsurpassed and unrivaled omniscience, compassion, and power. There is no one else in this world who can equal him.
Dina, Tap Samba, not the Povla, Jipur Topshigida, Kubi nana nyang me pada. Go nana lapa me pi kanzo zigna mahtogman. Jipet zigna chumden dila tatanga merki chemical ordinary.
And so, except for people who have no heart in their body or no brain in their head, everyone else would have to have this type of attraction to Lord Buddha Shakyamuni as the unsurpassed teacher.
Teni ta chula ngamdina ndopi tapada kid gubari.
Now then, the second level of faith is the development of the faith that attracts one to the Dharma, which is to want to emulate.
Ta chula ngamdina ndopi tapada chejadina tap chumden diga songwa bjenda. Chumden diga songwi chutina ta nyamselin de kaparchanzi kid gubari.
Here, one must come to know about the Dharma as the teachings of the path, which do lead to the state of enlightenment, the state of liberation. And one must be able to develop a very specialized level of faith towards the Dharma teachings.
Ta chumden diga songwi chute chirtan nyamselin gunan tar gev shik tamjadna drip goni. Merki shik tamjadna fang goni.
If we want to practice the Buddha Dharma purely, then we must understand that all that is wholesome and virtuous should be accomplished, and all that is unwholesome and non-virtuous must be abandoned.
Tinana tar gevi shirte kangla jenenana ndorna teni semjen tamjela ta no si saba me par ria fiamba da nyanje komandona gevi shirte.
When we think about that which falls into the category of being wholesome or virtuous, in brief, it would be the consideration of never wanting to harm any other living being for any reason, and developing love and compassion for each and every one of them.
Semjin sugmana ramdang selayana tap zambangan ba joratsabi litelan mergeva jifyawari.
And towards any being, whether they are high, middle, or low in terms of one's perspective, to have negative thoughts towards them or to actually show some physical adversity or aversion towards them is considered to be unwholesome or non-virtuous.
Teni semjela ta nopa me shepi tsirtea jumdan digi chutela gevjung chu jiji sonopari.
So, therefore, in order to be able to abstain from harming sentient beings, the Buddha taught the 10 virtues.
Teni ta gevjung chuze gitan jumdan digi jinjik tsamalar gevjung zendi ta tsami an nyamsilengi chu namba vjoneri.
Excuse me, the Buddha taught 4 The Buddha taught 4 ways through which wholesome accumulations occur, and these 4 should be practiced by all of those true followers of the Buddha.
Teni kanjena ta choyang lar matro reakshiri sarar bokuna harar bokunya namar.
So, the first of the 4 is to never retaliate if someone abuses you.
Kiyang lar machi semjer janga ranga chirg ki ngabayina te lar khiyan namari.
Dambodi.
Saran zangna haran zangnya namari.
So, di
Ni ba me?
Oh, dani dambodi.
Somebody has to retaliate. If somebody really
Physically, not to be bad. So the first one is to never retaliate. This is more of a verbal exchange. And so secondly, physically, if someone physically tries to abuse you, you would not physically retaliate.
Teni dakyang lar mardak zendi sarab jabna dog jabna ayha jabna zam jabna te chum den digi jinji tagmazi nizon te lan tayan namari.
Sumba.
Somebody.
And then the third one is to just remain patient without having any kind of a response. Even if they throw a stick, a club, or a stone at you, no matter how badly they physically abuse you, to have no response at all, no negative retaliation.
Tani sangdwala han sangmam drizendi chu hangan mangan chu kirge zingen gemit chu kirgenin chu shuvchay atimu nabar nazukum samdina halate tsilan zogona samdina namari.
Do young Kirsan
Someone is saying something like something.
physical verbal abuse, insulting, rated it's a radiation do you have a coma son.
No, saying that you are
And the fourth is if you are being verbally abused to the point where you're being insulted, like someone is saying to you, you're a thief, you're a robber, you're a liar, whatever kind of negative language that they are saying, you would not have any kind of verbal remark.
Then jumdan de chu tam je kana ke dangar ger ka yan la jin jon da ba ka rang ka dang zen ta lag ba ke ka ger ka chu na ta yan na jin kon jon da ni ka che ko na ta rang len kon.
Whenever we regain something like some profit and a winning thing, being like a victoria, the thing given to some other people, then whenever we're losing things, and those things we take all the
Because the Buddha taught that if you actually, even though in this kind of a situation it appears as though you are the loser, you are actually the winner. To abstain from retaliating in this way makes one the victor.
Dina ta jumdan de ge jong chu jo de yan ta ba zin yam zin tan nan ta jumdan de ji ang tang wo zen de tin yam sim meleni ta jumdan de ji ji kan zgan de ka zam zge zen ni ton gan ge jong chu jo ka ge la men nan de la jumdan de ji ji kan yang zam zge mi ji ji nam ta mari.
So therefore, really, someone who is able to practice these four purely is really considered to be a true follower of the Buddha. And if they're not practiced, if one is easy to react and shows this type of retaliation, then although one may consider oneself to be a follower of the Buddha, from the point of view of true quality or true meaning, one is not. Because these four are extremely important.
Then ta chitar gum guzina when na kanzo rankat paz karanga pa chana ta tela ta yerdan ki kala rondan ta dak ti genda vjen dak chibar kyan image kana arangla ne te nisin kan ame vjenda na ta no pa kana ya tela bu kyan mare when na ta maz ka vot nyonat ke te na veti mala chirtar no pa karyana veti ta yerdan la na mare ta mu vot nam jing na li toringera samdire kwe te vjenda na ranga hara pan bar tang sara no pa kyan tan da nam jing na na yomu ngam bandili tovi tav go da sam nyaje te terter gom gore.
So how do you actually meditate in this way? How can you put these four into practice? Of course, if someone is trying to harm you and inflict harm upon you in any of these ways, naturally anger will arise. But one has to try to, think into that and realize what the true situation is at hand, and to develop a sense of love and compassion for the individual who is doing this based on their own ignorance. And one has to be able to have a broad enough scope to see ahead, to see what the results will be if one in turn reduces oneself to their level. And so, to use a good example, it would be like the way that a mother usually thinks about her offspring, her son or her daughter. No matter how much her son or daughter are abusing her, then still she would love them and have compassion for them, even though it may be a difficult situation. And so in this way we should try to practice to have that kind of love and compassion for others who are harming us.
Taranga harang no pas kai serang no pas kerona te luchi rure tela dan yerdan ki kala gudan to margu dagla ni ba khafse tam me vjenda daga serana ta te no pa chibo dak ngod cho ton jandina tela yerdan markini machat ta ti digba tam chata dinga yodo jo mi gela member chik sambi sabab zongote achet gubari.
And then it can be taken even further as one develops in this practice of having a sense of love and compassion for the object then if one goes deeper in the practice, one would actually be able to feel, let them harm me, no matter what they do to me. How much they abuse me, it simply doesn't matter. They could even cut off my head, because I actually hope that all of their suffering that they are experiencing could ripen upon me, so that they don't have to experience this suffering. This is how one should think.
Then ta nyeri da nyeri sam kan nagarang sam dina da tela da ta yer da ke kalaronda to margur gir kap mo da kem goji ta tsingan da samr ter ta shina yana ta tevjin da telar gaftu shin harati yondal jud gubari
So this is how we should be able to practice with different individuals, abstaining from allowing anger to arise and be expressed. But all the more so, we should try to extend this in a broader sense to the way that we feel about situations in the world and towards other countries and other races of people and so forth.
They mind by really hundig man by Kedan. Ta rang nip chu number not of Hinayana. Tela yetang merkia tam the mazet, tela keep kerda, tani kiana, chumdan dig tambadi toti.
So even though it is extremely difficult to be disrespected by others, no matter how much disrespect is shown to one, the Buddha has always taught that not only should we never retaliate with anger, we should show respect back to that individual. We should show honor and respect no matter what.
Dina tap chumdan diga chutena dan seva me pada. Jen la pamba baj dibin simit jiv lamzan konarize gubi gimsa ya tagu chadneri.
This is why the Dharma, which is the teaching of the Buddha, is a teaching that promotes the practice of never harming others and always doing what one can to be of benefit to others as the main focus of the entire path. And so this is the point that's being brought out here. One has to take it literally.
Tinana ya tache na bisamnotana tatana chumdan dig tambada hachang yakhov zongoz da yinzidana tat tila loptabna se okmari tipyana tati chuti yamselin metab kusamna tila lotab gokiri.
So maybe you're thinking, oh yes, this doctrine sounds very good. In fact, the principles are excellent, but no one can really practice this. This is something that is really far too difficult for an ordinary person to be able to do.
Tati tangoni yamselin gonana take number tavi sanji chula sarti jibi kanzos margu quinana ngartavala quintona ta vodka travari masab lamari tangari tang nikyang tang wamaj nyamslin taba mari
Because it is a difficult practice, which is very true, even for myself. I am a Tibetan, I'm a monk, in fact I'm a Lama, and even I find it something very difficult to actually practice purely. So this is why each and every one of us have to practice the Dharma of Lord Buddha in gradual stages of development.
Ngatsu woi na yo lama sen mo ang tang wo yin na ngoma ku trogla te gyana semjer jang ga trok cha ke da semjer jang ga jirzi ke jila sa ba sa ni fi tek mari.
Like for example, for those good lamas in Tibet, even at the cost of their life, they would never take the life of another living being, nor would they ever consider to steal or embezzle the possessions of someone else.
Dina na ta kid na bala prim na kid na biyan. That there are chik punches and jetty that semjer chicken or trok marchet. Semjer chicken or jersey marker. But no pili 7 if it's in a camoritana. Ta mari rambavjan the flavan. Dorna simjan lagno bi live shipi tavla son gori.
Now then, let's take all of you. Maybe from this day onward, if you were to take a vow that from this day onward, I will no longer take the life of any living being, I will no longer take the possessions or steal from anyone else, take that which is not given to me, I will no longer intentionally harm any other living being. This might be difficult for you to do, to actually take that vow and keep it. But perhaps you have the aspiration to want to be able to do that, which means that you can begin to train and develop so that this is something that will become possible.
Inap jumdan diktam badela janlan sever gevjung mayin of zindir jan simjan zigana tap samba nganda jora sabmos godna tip jumdan dik jin tak mahsabani min song jumdan digana tat tik jadak songanir.
If you in the doctrine, if someone is harming other beings, then it is not follow of Buddhism.
However, it should be understood that according to the Buddha's doctrine then, because the principal focus is to never harm any other beings, if someone sort of is said to be practicing or claims to be practicing Buddhism or the teachings of the Buddha but is harming others, then this is really to contradict the doctrine and they're not really following the Buddha's teachings.
Dinana tat samiyam jumdan diga. Rang same na yonsor der jagi same na tingmifsha ndan san ji tambayin zer rang same the urmari tonjo mai same the maktir jo telana tarani kan ni ba septic dadi ko tela lab gonri.
And this is why, too, it is said, and I quote that one should always try, as followers of the Buddha, one should always try to tame one's own mind and to never disturb the mind of any other being. And so this is something that we all have the potential to do. And so gradually we must try to accomplish this, the taming of our own mind and to never disturb the minds of others.
Dinana tar rang same de chirgu tongo samna rang gida. Tap jumdan digi chudang mumtan bi jerdang ngambarti ona drag ndochik ngambarti ona drag qijan lam chaqtok teni jalni ngalaq samgi ngarger ter tayu samba ngambade ke ondi ta lam sant ke ono de higabjak shine tan der tayu toqa ngambade higanjok menyan sam dadi keron transhi zon shinche ter tayu tongan merkeno ta lamar komchik simgi shingi laptok sorf sam komchik sim laqsura chini sindib gubare.
So how can this be done? For instance, when we are experiencing extreme upheaval of conflicting emotions, like a strong upheaval of anger or desire or jealousy or pride, that mind which thinks I am better than others, and these types of concepts that become overpowered in our mind, we should immediately recognize them with our awareness and recognize that this, in fact, is an upheaval of the conflicting emotions, which is something detrimental, unwholesome, and will bring about these unwanted results. And so with mindfulness, we should try to allow it to be pacified. And if it's difficult for us to do that, we should pray to the three jewels of refuge to bless us so that we will have the potential to be able to put these conflicting emotions to rest.
Ta janana rang liki chopa ngambadang ngaktam natsir ngambadang sem ji tantok ngambakar janji sem de triban generi.
Now in terms of disturbing the minds of others, this occurs when we enact unsuitable physical behavior, when we speak negative words or say things to others which may harm them, or have negative thoughts.
Dinana ta rang jang sem triketka Fiamshut ngambade rang gilam jon yonir kamna. Then is on the rabnan savanir. Spang of Targoni, Karte, Tezamani now, Rang Jopaki, how Napchum than Diga, Jisik Bazireta Taran, ni Janji seems to be Lirka de Liga. Tapshin Jutman the Tav, 7 shed Mayam Samgi, then is on there. That Damjaf Tambori, she comes to some Maxora and the Gubarit.
So, of course, it's best to be able to eliminate any type of conduct which disturbs the minds of others from the root. But if that's not possible, and if it happens that one has actually engaged in some activity, physically, verbally, or mentally, which has which has brought some distress or misery to someone else, then one should immediately try to feel a sense of true remorse and regret, and remind oneself that, for instance, I am a follower of the Buddha. This type of conduct is totally unsuitable. Now I truly regret this, and in the future I will try to abstain from doing this again, and to pray to the three jewels of refuge to bestow blessings.
Dinana ta tirtavina semjalla nopa mfkir rang sambadi ftona chik gubayo nrizena ta senderyana tserangwa nadmi pa longshi chiwa zobjit zangwa ta yangi kurgubin sekirwala sobi yondan chikhna mawojik tim jonjire.
Now, if you were to ask, well, what are the benefits of actually being careful in terms of these points, these practices, to abstain from these unwholesome accumulations of harming others? The benefits are that in this very life, one will experience longevity, good health, increase of merit, endowments, happiness, and so forth.
Then send mazadna ta sef himayana te deva chalna sobi takbe jankam zerke. Then in the Sanji Koma Topangirala Sobi, that dinger tamchet tamteri, they are pansum soba topkiri.
And not just only in this life, but in the future lifetime, one will be reborn in the realm of great bliss, Amitabha's pure realm, the Buddha fields. And these are places where the suffering of cyclic existence is non-existent. And gradually one is able to achieve the status of perfect enlightenment and never experience any kind of suffering again.
Dina Jondan the Somi Chunde, near chicken Absalana, near Korayana. They divadan, dinger than target. Kim chicken ni, Tirtavina Yamsalana, Kimson come with the divadan dangeri. Tonjir chicken Mernamgana, Tirtavi Sanji Chuni Yamsalana, Tonjir Teada, then it cut down Tartakan the Degeri. Then it get kept chicken Matsami under Tavi Yamsalana, get come Teana, that they are Pansum Sobari. Tim Azan Zalang Matsamayana. Dan Sanji Tamban, the Yams Lenji Chanzina, Dan Zamalan de of Dejan Kipa Pansum Sobada, Dan Zama Jidi, Variante am Wondeker. Then is on theatre, Dinger Chang seems to say on me partner, that Dirki Pansum Sobam Jonjiri.
So you see, if just one person actually practices the Dharma of the Buddha, Lord Buddha's teachings, the holy Dharma, then that one person will be free from suffering and will experience peace and happiness. If one family practices the Buddha Dharma, that entire family will be free from suffering and experience peace and happiness. If one town practices the Buddha Dharma, the entire town will be free from suffering and experience peace and happiness. Ultimate, permanent peace and happiness. If the entire country is practicing the Buddha Dharma, the entire country will be fully endowed in this way. If the entire world practices the Buddha Dharma, if all the beings in the world were to practice the Buddha Dharma, everyone would be free from suffering and would experience permanent peace and happiness, which would be to establish peace in this world, a situation in this world where there was no longer any suffering and only happiness.
That Devam Joner Ganzigma, the Dinger Mam Joner Ganzimar Toman, dear Mam Joner Samdan, that Dinger Joner Sam say on your tricky mar.
Because anyone, everyone, only wants to have peace and happiness. Nobody wants to suffer. If suffering does not occur, everyone is happy. There's not a single living being who wants to suffer.
Dinana, that's Simjan Tamchet, Deva dare to be tapped, Dinger Maper he be tapped in, Jum the Dixon the Connery.
Therefore, in terms of that, the point is that it is only the Buddha who has been able to teach the methods which can bring peace and happiness to all beings and free all beings from suffering.
Dinaya, Tam Zibatarda, some no jip the Tangla. Takina and the top Jumdan de la Chundala. Take Corina on a young maiden, lap Guna, Lapinana, Guna, Lapa made the castles in the Masterman, top Jumdan de Chundala, Mubama teaches 7 Yonjamari.
If you think carefully about this, about the attributes and the qualities, the unrivaled qualities of the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, then except for someone who doesn't have a heart in their body or a brain in their head, everyone else would be attracted to the Buddha with this type of strong faith.
Dinana, Tashi Jimu Tarayan, Tashi Chidan. Wami Yanni Yan the Tana Chumdan Diga Tambandala, Metat Padamu because of Natsu vodka Musayan, a let me put on Yamit Posera. That is the Tanyata Dogiri, Dr. Yoden, Donnery, work Zenry, Yamit Po, a let me po, yeah.
So in Tibet, we actually have this saying, which is why I'm repeating this, because it really applies to someone who, in fact, had examined or investigated the qualities of the Buddha Dharma again and again, and still doesn't have faith, is still unable to develop faith. Then they're like someone who is heartless or brainless.
Yeah, Tifina Koginan and young men that go on a leper made in the Tese and the Maritana. That Jumden the gingers of Katina, Tar, Hell was the Koginan and the Taylor young there in the Hajan Shibu at the Mari. Halapina, Jona, Jum and Timuyan, you no Taylor Lapazir Sibu at the Mari. So you can run and do in the Lamta, young Tabazina Taylor, young Kalapa Alcazend.
And this is really not to be taken literally, like those followers of the Buddha have nice hearts in their bodies or brains in their head. But it means that those who are able to really follow the teachings accordingly so that they themselves are establishing true peace and happiness, then they are likened to individuals who are complete, that their lives are complete in this way.
Dinana Rangla, Nyandang Lapaji, you burn Dodna, Tarang Yams of Langi, Chute Mano Razi, she's gone to Mela. Taku Nyazi, Rosi, Tanzi, Gomba's conscience, Amsakana, Kanya Tangla, such a Tanyan Dogimari.
But if you want to be someone with a heart and a brain, then you should practice the Buddha Dharma without any mistake. If you know how to sleep, if you know how to walk around, if you know how to eat and put clothes on, you still don't qualify as someone with a brain or a heart. So if one has a strong aspiration towards the Buddha Dharma, then this is equivalent to the second level, the development of the second level of faith, which is a faith that wishes to emulate. Now, the third level of faith is called fully convinced or irreversible, and this is likened to the way that one feels towards the third jewel of refuge, the Sangha. Now, the Sangha means the spiritual community who are the followers of the Buddha. And what that really means, that primarily those who are followers of the Buddha are people who are concerned with only employing the methods which bring benefit to self and others.
Simjala Nopa Makira, Tabak Mambi Luzidan. Simjala Nopa Makirni, Message Simjala Pamba Deba, Taba Chambu Lida. Simjala Pamba Deba there. Tar Gachi Woda, Kasak Maper, near the Deban, Song Durji Tabilam Yamsilimbi, Tar Gendantila Rixamokiri.
Those who are followers of the Buddha in this world of ours these days fall into three categories. Those who follow according to the lesser spiritual pursuit of the Hinayana, who mainly practice the abstinence or abstaining from harming others intentionally. Those who practice on the level of the greater spiritual pursuit, or the Mahayana, who in addition to that practice the methods which bring benefit to others. And those who practice on the mantra pursuit, or the vehicle of Vajrayana, who incorporate the lower two practices into the employment of methods which are not difficult and which bring results swiftly and extensively.
Dina Tirtavi, that doesn't be cave of Samiana. That Sibjana Panbab to because of the Gin by the Mushiviana, that Dilan Yichi Merki because they are saying you take about.
Now, if you meet with someone who is an individual who accomplishes the practice of bringing benefit to other beings, and if you recognize this quality in somebody, that there's someone who actually is able to help others and who is engaged in that type of practice, then you would feel a sense of confidence in that person.
콜라 쪼보시고 비관도 시나 추 쪼보데 켰다가 무슨 트라핑이 갑나야나 콜가와 쪼와 그렇듯이었는지 거기야나 콜라 또바 데니존테 다티르타이 판치 똑치했는지 데니존테데나 다 콜라나 피아 강치 타케야나 팜버티비 쪼보티라 켜이치오기라 쪼보 가지고는 그 ngof티나 또카이 거니 맛 데니존테데 콜라가 노바 나서고 탑랍 som비 쪼보티라.
For example, if you have a friend, and this friend is someone who is beneficial, benefit to you, who is beneficial to you, who shows you respect, who is a true friend, then this is someone that you will develop confidence in. You will be attracted towards, and you will have confidence and trust in. Whereas if you have a friend who harms you, who abuses you, who disrespects you, it'll be very difficult for you to have confidence or trust in this friend. And this is the reason why the fully convinced faith is the level of faith that is experienced when we experience devotion in the third jewel of refuge, the Sangha.
Dina tar komchuk sam gyo dan dor tiba zamshik tu fianeri. Dina kena bat samaya tar komchuk sam la gasaya. Ofto.
Now, I have given a very brief explanation of the qualities of the three jewels of refuge. I would like to ask you, do you feel a sense of faith or devotion in the three jewels? Are you attracted to them?
Those
of you who like the three jewels, raise your hand.
Yeah.
Those who don't like the three jewels, raise your hand. Very good. Now everyone likes the three jewels.
Timru Janlan Seva may be Tambi Chudi Yamsilengeda. Shooting Yatabar Yamsilen be took again the Batamcheta. Tis Tata Drogona. That's Sanji Chudi Yamsilin Samgi. Damjet the Gilla Keeper Zochik.
Therefore, from now on, from this moment onward and throughout all of your lifetimes, I would like you to make the aspiration and the commitment that you will always be attracted to the unsurpassed and fully endowed teacher who possesses the most exalted qualities of any teacher in this world, Lord Buddha Shakyamuni, and that you will listen to the Dharma teachings and bring them into your life and practice them to the best of your ability, and that you will always befriend the Sangha community and choose them as your first choice in terms of companionship and friendship in this world. And in this way you will be truly living out this feeling of devotion that you have in the three jewels of refuge as your absolute objects of refuge. With this type of devotion developed within your mind stream, please bring your palms together at your heart and repeat after me.
Lama la gyabsum cho.
Lama la gyabsu chiwo.
Sangi la gyabsum cho.
Sangye la gyapsu chiwo.
Shula kyapsum chogo.
Chula gyapsu chiwo.
Gendon la kyapsum chogo.
Genden la gyapsu chiwo.
Lama la kyapsum chogo.
Lama la gyapsu chiwo.
Sanki la kyapsum chogo.
Sangye la gyapsu chiwo.
Shula kyapsum chogo.
Chula gyapsu chiwo.
Gendon la kyapsum chogo.
Genden la gyapsu chiwo.
Lama la kyapsum chogo.
Lama la gyapsu chiwo.
Sanki la kyapsum chogo.
Sangye la gyapsu chiwo.
Shula kyapsum chogo.
Chula gyapsu chiwo.
Gendon la kyapsum chogo.
Genden la gyapsu chiwo.
Ta kena ba tsama la kyapru don ba topneri.
Now, all of you have received the refuge vows.
Tene kena ba tsama ti terang ni zonte ta nawa sangi ba ze gim sangi ta da ba te an kerneri.
From this moment onward, you may call yourself a Buddhist.
Tene ta ni zonte kena bina chudan jikten gi fiawa kan dribna yana tan garkin me par sambab jin den tabgiri.
And from this moment onward, whatever activities that you want to accomplish, whether they are spiritual or of this world, you will be able to accomplish them in a way that you have not been able to before.
Tene ne ta madang mamayin ban dreb ki klasok bi ta nopar nambar natsok yana ta kom chiksam ge tigjir kep tabgiri.
And not only that, those humans and those negative spirits who do cause harm on other levels will no longer be able to harm you, because you will be protected by the 3 jewels from this moment onward.
Chenabi tin namyang ta kom chiksam de la lokat malwana ndiki wanda chitani kejaga tsen de matsat sef himayana ta nyarwa yidak tenro la sakbi ta nganbi kiwa tsani len gujimari.
Now, as long as you don't ever fall under the power of incorrect view, if you maintain your vows and your commitment to the 3 jewels of refuge, as you've stated it here today, then in this and in all future lifetimes, you will no longer take rebirth in the 3 lower realms.
Dinana ta kena bitari ge tamjiadana. Ichi di tangana ngira me perkidan kecheki milito bateyan tonda tambanya tikerneri.
And so, if you maintain this commitment and promise in an unchanging way, then you have truly, on this occasion, you have truly accomplished the purpose of a precious human rebirth.
Dina ngipsamna kenamba ta mangcheba jiktana janati deni gerkum de kibi mayingiri. Parchirna ari longala kibi mayingiri. Ta ta kecheki tse kawala terang fiavan dirtawi ta timri ya chimbo top nywa kimari samka.
So, now, as I look around, I think that we have a mixed crowd. There are many of you here who are Native Canadians, and there are many who are Native Americans who have moved to Canada. At any rate, I do feel that today, for many of you here, this is the most important and valuable thing that you've ever done in your life.
Tani ta kena bi te zevi gimsab deya. Kena bi parchir nyesi kawola. Ria. Ta ari longala tere jana te ante ingiri. Za film badang za nima yigiti sud martak me tish takdana. Ta zagi konja. Nyandak. Kurmu kilire laqsam mbapa shinri.
Because whether you're from the United States or Canada, I think it's probably the same, that except for Saturday and Sunday, all of the other time in your life is more or less spent in the pursuit of getting enough food to eat and clothes to wear, and to actually be able to just simply survive in this world, to maintain yourself and to accumulate some type of wealth or position.
Tang muma ke chekim nise kawo telam bartsur khierlik telap samop tangan tatsot arifi ho wa ke fel zegzo ti jiste de ja to na chukji jang ge chekim ba pa de hit nywa chami zena o to tari
Young Kirsuguna.
ge chekim bartsur khier tang de samop tangan ta tatsot arifi bo wa ke fel ti jiste zam to na chukji ge chekim bartsur hit nywa art Kit nyonga dane nyongro ta tartana
So except for what you've been able to accomplish in terms of your goals of having enough food to eat, enough clothing to wear, and a certain state of status or enjoyment in this life, probably you haven't been able to accomplish too much more than that. This is why I made the statement that today you have done something more meaningful than you've done in your entire life because of the benefits that you will derive from what you just did. Now many of you here probably are already Buddhists, long-time Buddhist practitioners, that's for sure. And some of you here today probably were not Buddhist before you came, and now you are. And now you're new Buddhists with an appreciation for the special qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And so you are able to have confidence and trust in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and that is why you went ahead and took the vows. And so I feel that what's happened here this afternoon makes my journey to Canada something meaningful. And I also know for sure that it's something meaningful for you. And this is why I say that this is a fully endowed occasion. So the training that you must now try to engage in as best as you can includes at all times and in all situations, in having taken refuge in the Buddha, to make prayers to the three jewels of refuge, to help you and assist you on the path, to take them as your source of refuge. And having taken refuge in the Dharma, you should try your best not to ever harm any other sentient being intentionally. And in having taken refuge in the Sangha, you should try to have respect and confidence in those followers of the Buddha.
That deranga teni lirim de gobjuk shepa putena that nyangje dan shereb lipsambi chute shotzina teni yigina de kodak dinangi shereb dan nyangje tean that chongchong sa main bar that sanji chudan dem da de kerangan ke nambala pamba gechim bozum jong shetana dektam shetti hibai.
Now, although the subject today was the subject of compassion and wisdom, in one way, I feel that I've taken that and I've expanded it to encompass a teaching that gives you an ability to appreciate and understand all of the Buddha's teachings in one kind of an explanation, which will benefit you in a way that could not be equaled by just giving only a talk on compassion and wisdom. And so therefore, I chose to expand this and to elaborate on a general subject of the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha, which includes compassion and wisdom. And I feel that this has surely been of more benefit to you on this occasion.
The news on Teten, Kakadante, and Yamumari. The Mangiana, that Titak, Kenambala, Tikajan towards Marta. 60 Shapi, Yandan, Kenambala, and Dipship Gunda, Pambam Young Stamships on was redna. They can be Tinyams of Tiri.
And I want you to know, too, that I don't consider myself to be very clever or skillful with words. I have kind of a style of just being honest and direct. And I felt that by really being even more so that way today, that there was a purpose here, because I did it so that I could give you something that would be of benefit to you in this and all future lifetimes.
딱 거북인데 결나비 지무 지 리름 남란직 바름zott.
So for today, I will conclude the public section of the public talk, which is the public discussion in my different teachings that I will give here. Starting tomorrow, there will be more specific topics and teachings that I will be giving, and so I hope to see you then.